Darryl has been one of those brawlers that have seemed to be forgotten by Supercell over the years. This was overall the feeling the community got until he not only got an amazing skin, but a huge buff in the SpongeBob update and a new Hypercharge. Now let's go back and see the entire history of Darryl. The beginning. Darryl was one of the first brawlers added after the first 15. He was put into Brawl Stars on December 7th, 2017, and this Darryl was a completely different brawler from the Darryl we know today. First, his design was different, but the main difference was his super. His super was 23.3 tiles. That is an insane range, and it was over 3 times longer than the super Darryl has today. When he first came out, he was actually pretty weak. He had to get 5 buffs and a rework with just a slight nerf to his rolling speed throughout the next 3 balance changes. On Karos Time's first tier list ever made 2 months after Darryl was released, Darryl was actually number 2 in the list, right behind Crow. Keep in mind there were a lot less brawlers, so there was a lot less variety. But this does show how powerful he was. He was especially strong in Heist and Smash and Grab. Smash and Grab is a way better name, by the way. Throughout 2018, Darryl was completely forgotten, which seems to be a theme with Supercell. Darryl just kept getting worse and worse with the meta developing. He did not even get any nerfs. He basically only became a brawler for Heist and nothing else, simply because of his super that could go throughout the map and the enemy could basically do nothing about it. A brawler only used in Heist with a super that can travel throughout the map and the enemies can't do anything about it. This sounds familiar. The Rework. After 7 months of not being changed and staying at the bottom of the meta, Darryl finally got some attention from Supercell on December 5th, 2018. But this wasn't just a simple buff making him OP for a couple months. This was a full rework that changed the way Darryl worked forever. The biggest difference was definitely to his super. His super range was decreased to 7 tiles. Before it was 23.3. Darryl's super, however, now charged automatically. Back then it was 20 seconds. He did less damage and had less health overall, but it had made him more of an assassin than a tank. The star power also got changed, since it really didn't work for his kit anymore. Instead of having a shield only during his super, he got it for 3.5 seconds after activating his super. However, it went from 80% damage decrease to only 30%. Darryl's super, however, now charged automatically. Back then it was 20 seconds. This was very impactful, since it was the first time we have ever had a brawler recharging their super automatically, which is now a feature with multiple brawlers such as Bonnie, Kit, or Edgar. This also differentiated Darryl from Bull a lot more. Before, they were basically the same brawler, but Darryl was good in Heist and Bull was better everywhere else. After the rework in 2019. The rework made Darryl a lot more viable in the meta, and made him a lot more versatile. He wasn't just a brawler for Heist and nothing else anymore. However, there did need to be some tweaks to his kit. It seemed like Supercell wasn't satisfied with how strong Darryl was after the rework. He was not S tier in any modes, but he was consistently a good pick in most game modes. He even got worse in Heist, which makes sense, but he went from S tier to being fine. Bull took the spot for the best brawler in Heist, since there was a spot to fill as a tank rushing the save. His main attack damage was increased to 280 from 260 per shell. Darryl's Steel Hoop star power reduction was increased to 40%, before it was 30%, and he also got a remodel. Even though these buffs didn't seem like that much at first glance, these propelled him to become literally the best brawler in the game. To make him more balanced, Supercell quickly nerfed Darryl by making his super recharge in 30 seconds instead of 20. This did not do much to Darryl since he was still in S tier, however he did get dethroned by Pam. The meta then became a meta bad for tanks, so even if Darryl went from S tier to A tier, he was still the best tank in the game. Carl was just added and was destroying the meta because of how good he was, and he was pretty good against Darryl. On July 31st, 2019, Darryl got his second star power, but it really didn't do much for him in the meta. Darryl got 2 buffs to his health, so he could be a better tank than just an assassin who gets taken out really quickly. He also got a change to his Steel Hoop star power, but this honestly happened so much with no big significant change that I won't mention the changes to this star power for the rest of his history. Just know that he got a lot of changes to his star power throughout the years. However, even after these 2 buffs, Darryl stayed the same in the meta for 6 months straight. He wasn't bad, but he was not that good, and Carl was still the best brawler in the game. There was also the addition of BB the update right before. Her mechanics are really good against tanks, so that's another reason why Darryl did not move in the meta, even after getting some buffs. One of the best changes in the history of Darryl is when they made Darryl fire from the center of his hitbox. It was so clunky how he shot a little from each side before. Sure, it made more sense since he's holding the weapons to his side, but the gameplay is so much better this way. Another big rework that Darryl got on August 29th, 2019 is his rolling reload star power. It changed from giving him all the ammo while using his super to making it so that he doubles his reload speed for 5 seconds after using his super. Now, after 8 whole months of not moving at all, Darryl finally got 2 buffs on November 7th, 2019. He got a little bit more damage and a little bit more health. Even if these were small changes, Darryl got back to S tier, being the 3rd best brawler in the game, right behind Rosa and Carl. He actually stayed in S tier for a long time until July 2020, when he dropped down to be in the middle of the pack. The meta simply got bad for tanks. Even Rosa dropped down. Now we're in August 2020, and it's been around 3 years that Darryl has been added. And some people might argue that Darryl is not a forgotten brawler, since these are a lot of changes in only 3 years. But from 2020 to now, there has really not been a lot of significant changes making Darryl better. After 1 year and a half seeming to be a forgotten brawler by Supercell, Darryl got a rework, where no matter the star power, he gets a shield while rolling. His steel hoops then had to get a rework to something new, so that it gives a 25% damage reduction shield for 2 seconds after rolling. This made him insanely OP. He went from one of the worst brawlers of the game for 17 months to literally being the best brawler in the game. Then 3 months later, they reduced his reduction damage from 90% to 50%. This wasn't that terrible, but it did drop him down, and he slowly became a mid brawler again. Throughout the months, he went from either B or C tier. Then Supercell completely forgot about him again. They did not touch him for another year and a half. Finally, he got a small buff to his recoiling rotator gadget, but that barely moved him, and he stayed in the B tier. In December 2024, he got a change to his projectile speed. This buff made people think that Darryl would finally become a great brawler again. But when it came time for the next pro tier list, Darryl was actually C tier still. However, with this update, something changed with Supercell. They seem to actually want Darryl to be good again. So even if this buff didn't change him in the meta, they tried again. On July 7th, 2024, it was a terrible day for Darryl mains. Karastime uploaded version 40 of his pro tier list, and Darryl got F tier. This brings us to August 2024, and this was the happiest Darryl mains have ever been. After 4 years of Darryl being forgotten by Supercell and ranging from B to even F tier, Darryl finally got a big buff. He got 2 rolls every time he got his super. From this date up to uploading this video, Darryl has been S tier, and all his mains that have been waiting patiently can now finally enjoy him without getting liked every single game. Thanks for watching until the end. I'm planning to make more of these videos in the future, so if you like them, subscribe to see more of them. You can also comment which brawler you would like to see the history of next.